Well, you call it denial is the term. But the truth of the matter is, Alex, it is so hard to believe that the doctor who you know and you trust would give something to your child that would be harmful to them. But what you must understand, I don't know if you've ever seen the DVD or heard the talk put out by Dr. Blaylock, and I know you don't know Russell, but he has a talk on vaccines and brain development, pointing out that the vaccines actually stunt brain development. The younger they're given, why, of course, the younger the child is, the more damage they do. But every time you take a vaccine, why, it triggers off not only the immune response in the body, but the immune response in the brain. And that's why those children were a little groggy. They weren't quite themselves. They weren't thinking clearly. Well, when you get the flu, your mind is sort of groggy. But of course, the same thing happens when you take the vaccine. But you do this repeatedly, and you produce chronic inflammation in the brain of an older person, and that's why so many of them get demented. But you do this in the child, it prevents the normal development of the brain in the child. This is criminal activity, and they want to give several of these vaccine shots at the same time, knowing that it will do the maximum amount of damage that way. The average doctor has no idea because he's never allowed to hear this information. That's why we need to educate your audience. They've got to go to
they're compartmentalized. We need to educate our city councils, our health departments, our police, our doctors. Most of them, they don't know.
But I think that an awful lot of people at least have a suspicion something's going on, and I think there's a growing awareness that there's something seriously wrong. And they have to understand that it is not simply the mercury in the vaccines, although this is toxic to the brain. It is the aluminum that is in the vaccines. Now, fortunately, as far as we know, they are not going to have aluminum in the swine flu vaccine, but it is in the regular seasonal vaccine. And this, of course, aluminum is a toxic metal, and aluminum and mercury together are even more toxic. And then if you have fluoridated water, that's the 1, 2, 3 thing. And this is why so many of even our college students, when they graduate, are totally incapable when they graduate from college.
They can't think. I mean, this is what the globalists call for in their documents, is brain damaging everybody through the food, water, and vaccines. And so people say it's like the public's retarded. They are. And Dr. Blaylock points that out, that they have major studies that people that are 20 now on average have the memory of a 65-year-old. And literally, they're just going to turn it into a business, advertise it, and say it's normal to have an 80 IQ, it's normal to drool. Geniuses won't have 140 IQ, they'll have 100. And if somebody can tie their shoelaces, they'll be a genius. And then the elite's just laughing. And I know there's brain damaged people listening right now, but even with a retarded child, you can get through to them and talk to them. To the police officers, you've been brain damaged. You've been brainwashed. The sodium fluoride isn't good for you. The vaccines aren't good. Bad man giving you shot. Bad system hurt your brain. Brain is what you think with. It's in your... I'm not being sarcastic here. Sometimes I think I should talk to the general public like that because Look, I want to take a few final calls here with you, Dr. Monteith, but one last question before we take a few of those. Quickly, the time we have left here, because I've got other news for listeners I'm going to hit. We appreciate your time. I had Dr. Blaylock on several times in the last month, and he pointed out that mercury, aluminum, not just squalene, are adjuvants themselves and cause the autoimmune response and swelling, not just in the brain, but in other glands and organs, and that's where most of the damage is coming from, not just the cancer viruses, not just the neurological damage of the mercury itself. What's your intel on that as a medical doctor?
Well, I think he's absolutely right. And remember what Bertrand Russell said in his book on page 53, The Impact of Science on Society. By diet, injections, and injunctions will alter the brain patterns of our children. That's exactly what it was about. He was one of the leaders. He laid it all out. But we can't let the people know there really are evil people who want to harm their children.
All right, let's take a call. I'm going to go to your calls quickly now. Chris in Maryland, you're on the air with Dr. Stan Monteith. Go ahead.
Hey, Hey, Doctor. It's an honor to talk to you. I was a combat lifesaver in the Army years ago, and one of the things that we were taught is to give vaccines for the flu. And during the course, the instructor had said, now these actual flu vaccines are from last year's strain. And I questioned him, and I asked, why are we getting last year's strain? Because of, if it's this year that we're living in, what good is last year's strain going to be? And it makes sense now with all these nanoparticles, these adjuvants such as mercury, the other stuff.
Yeah, you're not given the shot to take care of the flu. You're giving it to be brain damaged.
Exactly. And now I understand why I've got these medical disabilities such as IBS and autoimmune system infection where it's attacking my own body.
Sure.
It makes perfect sense.
Were you in during the Gulf War, during the first Gulf War?
Unfortunately, yes.
Well, that's when they used the experimental vaccine, so-called Vaccine A, with the squalene in it, and over almost 80,000 of the 690,000 troops we sent are dead already. And of course, they're monitoring this very closely to see.
Yeah, the Army admits it was the squalene. You're lucky you're not dead.
Yeah.
You're lucky the Army admits you've been soft-killed, and I'm sorry they tried to murder you. Just be glad you're not dead and warn as many people as you can before they continue the murders.
Well, I just got out of the hospital because of it. I had some bleeding, and the only good thing I got out of it was the morphine. That was about the only good thing that I got out of the whole
Well, they
incident.
hit you hard, and I'm sorry they did. But see, they hate you as somebody that believes they're patriotic. They hate you. They hate their servants.
Yeah, and this reminds me, the Christianity in this country is not the Christianity that Jesus taught back in his day. I know it, because the churches are teaching people to, pray for your leaders, pray for your country. Why would I want to pray for a country that wants to kill me for first?
Your country.
Well, it's not your country. It's a criminal corporate group. Look, if hijackers hijack a plane, does everybody bow down because they put the captain cap on? No, it's illegitimate. It's a hijacking. It's a global corporate takeover. They wrap themselves in the flag and then carry out their operations. Dr. Monteith, you wanted to comment?
Can't say it better than that. It is not our country. It is our country has been taken over. We have a visible government. We have an invisible government, which I call the Brotherhood of Darkness. People need to understand that. And they want to destroy the majority of the people in the world.
And by the way, I know there are new military people who aren't veterans yet, a lot of police listening. Most of you don't laugh, some do. Go ahead, take all the shots, get diabetes when you're 35, let your kid get cancer when they're 10, and then you won't be laughing. This isn't a game. I'm not up here risking my life to tell you about this stuff. They've killed a lot of people. And I appreciate your call, Chris. I'm sorry they did that to you, but Dr. Monteith, I'm sure you saw the ABC News article from 3 or 4 months ago with the headline that Merck, quote, sent out hit teams to doctors' homes. And in court documents, it came out that they said, we've got to seek and destroy, take them out, hit them. Anyone that criticizes our drugs and vaccines. And then when Merck got caught in federal court with these internal corporate documents, they said, we just meant that as a joke, saying hit teams.
Well, this is nothing funny about what's going on. The number of people who've been killed, the number of children whose lives have been destroyed forever. 1 in every 60 to 90 boys in the United States is autistic, and they did it on purpose. That's what's so unconscionable.
Now, they call autism the range of brain damage caused from the chemical weapon and biological weapons in the vaccines.
Right.
Let's talk. Go ahead.
The thing is that basically probably every child has been injured to some greater or lesser extent.
And now they're coming out with pharmacological crops that have the vaccines in them.
Right. So the GMO foods is a disaster. That's why they're storing the seeds up above the Arctic Circle, so that they will have them there when they start in